I'm at the Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Museum in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is one cool museum and they have got an amazing collection of Toyota Land Cruisers, which we're going to check out in this video. Here at madmatt Four-Wheel Drive, I'm all about educating and building the four-wheel drive community so we can wheel well. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you can get those notifications. Now this is a unicorn. It's a 1953 BJT Toyota Jeep, all right? What happened is the US military said to Toyota, could you build us a vehicle, a four-wheel drive, along the lines of the Jeep for the Korean War? Well, Toyota did. They produced these. About 300 were made. And then the US Army went, yeah, you know what? Don't worry about it. So they had these Jeeps or Toyotas and they put them up Army surplus. Now, two guys from Adelaide in Australia purchased two of these and brought them to Australia to use as mail delivery vehicles, and they were used for quite a number of years. So these two vehicles, well, one of them was in a workshop getting its front end rebuilt when it disappeared, and nobody knows where that is. But about 2 years ago, the museum found out about this one and brought it back to the US. So this is literally a unicorn. Only about 300 were made. And right next door to that is the 1958 FJ25. This vehicle, this very vehicle, was the first Toyota Land Cruiser sold into America. Isn't that just amazing? Right here in the museum. So Dan is the curator of the museum. Now Dan, tell us a little bit about the purpose of this museum.
The Land Cruiser Museum was created by Greg Miller to celebrate the history of the Land Cruiser and the passion of the Land Cruiser, and to be a focal point for all knowledge, all things Land Cruiser. Vehicles, documentation, books, old ads, tools, artifacts, to be the knowledge base if somebody wanted to restore one and be able to look at it and say, okay, this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. That's how it was done originally. So it's a celebration of the history of the Land Cruiser and the passion that people who own them have for them.
And it seems like, just walking around the museum this morning, a number of the vehicles are significantly modified, like this icon Land Cruiser behind us here. So you're not just staying Puritan to the original vehicles, are you? No, no, we have a cross-section of stock vehicles, mildly modified vehicles, rock crawlers, or custom-built vehicles like the icon behind us. It's a little bit of everything, but primarily historical preservation and awareness of what people have done with them through the decades. It's over 60 years now. Now we're going to just head around the museum and pick out some of the vehicles that we find interesting and share a little bit about those cool elements with you. This 1978 FJ40 Mega Cruiser is kind of based on a Hummer, but it's the Toyota Mega Cruiser. Now the chassis and driveline, the independent suspension were all used from a Mega Cruiser as the base of this vehicle with the FJ40 body on it. It's got a 4.1 litre 4-cylinder diesel, a 4-speed automatic transmission, and it was built by Jeremiah Prophet for maximum off-road capability, and he called it Kitty. So this is a 1982 LD10 Blizzard. So between 1980 and 1990, Toyota and Daihatsu did a bit of a partnership and they built the Toyota Blizzard. What they did was they used the Daihatsu bodies and fitted them onto Toyota chassis and running gears. The Blizzard was intended only for the Japanese domestic market. Now, a friend of mine, Ben Cook, he is an absolute wizard at restoring some of these old Land Cruisers, and he's asked a couple of questions. So Dan and I are going to head down and check out these vehicles. So Ben, PX10, just for you. So tell us, Dan, a little bit about this vehicle. What's the idea of it? There's only a few of these in the world.
Correct. PX10 was produced in the mid-1990s, like 1997, maybe a few in 96. It's based on a HZJ73 body, a vehicle that was partially assembled by Toyota Auto Body and then sent to a custom body shop that created a vehicle that was an homage, if you will, to the FJ40. So they put different front sheet metal on it that was custom fitted and designed to mimic the look of an FJ40.
Just the way that grille works and the indicators there. And
Oh, the guards, the fenders or guards, very much like a 40.
Yeah.
Turn signal lamps, very much like a 40. The traditional bezel that we would expect on a 40. Yeah. Instead of having a removable fiberglass roof like a true 73 would, they completely enclosed the roof in sheet metal and rounded it off, and then of course painted it white, as you can see here, again to reference the white fiberglass top on a typical 40. This has some unusual looking mirrors that kind of detract from it a little bit, but they were required for the Japanese road regulations.
Okay.
Because this is a commercial vehicle. So the mirrors look a little bit odd, but they're there for a reason.
So how many of these were made?
We think a couple of dozen.
Really? So like 24?
25, somewhere around there.
Less than 30?
Yeah, that's what we believe.
Wow.
Yes.
So this is super rare.
It is.
How has this come to be in the museum?
Well, we found it a few years ago I believe it was in Canada at the time. We were able to get a hold of it and add it to the museum collection. They're extremely rare. There's only 2 of them in North America that we're aware of. The other one happens to be red also, belongs to Spectre Off-Road in California. That was part of the late Marv Spector's collection, and his family still has that vehicle.
What's the motor driveline configuration for this?
This has a 1HZ, naturally aspirated 6-cylinder diesel engine, an automatic transmission.
Okay.
It has, odd, isn't it?
If it wasn't already gutless with the 1HZ motor,
well,
with the auto.
It can kind of get out of its own way. It's a heavy-duty setup, so it's the leaf spring suspension. This particular one has automatic electric hubs, so it's kind of a combination between a heavy-duty and a light-duty Land Cruiser from its aesthetics and interior. Like the instrument panel is very shaped, has a very swooping, smooth shape, such as an 80 series does.
Copy.
Often referred to as the grand piano look. That's supposedly what influenced Toyota to do that flowing dashboard, was a grand piano.
Okay.
That's what I've been told.
We'll go with that.
and the upholstery is a little bit nicer. And the carpet is a little bit nicer because it's like a light-duty interior in a heavy-duty package.
So Dan has just told me something really, really cool about the FJ Cruisers. Now, we all know that the FJ is paying homage to its grandfather vehicles with that whole front end look. Personally, I quite like it. But Dan, what were you just telling me a second ago?
Well, what I mentioned is if you look at these 2 vehicles side by side, you'll see...
So this is the PX10?
The PX10. You'll see a very strong resemblance to the front end of the vehicle.
That whole bezel
the
there.
Bezel and the way the lights wrap. I mean, it looks like that influenced that. Well, we had an occasion where we had some folks from Toyota here that were involved in the design of this vehicle, and it was parked next to that one, and the fellow said that he had never seen a PX10 in his life and didn't even know they existed, but yet it looks like they referenced it to create that front end.
It sure does. That is a cool little piece of information.
It is kind of interesting, yeah.
This is a 1996 Toyota Mega Cruiser. It's vehicle number 17 of only 149 that were made in the civilian configuration like the white one we see here. It had a 4-cylinder diesel engine, 4.1 litres, so it was an absolute powerhouse of nothing. There were around about 3,000 military versions made for the Japanese Army. It's really sad to see a Toyota in this condition. This is a 1973 FJ40 and it got burnt out in the Paradise Fires of California in 2018. It did have an inline 6-cylinder, 4-speed transmission behind it. And it was donated to the museum by Mr. Scott McKenzie and his family. It's a tragic example of what can happen to things that we cherish and hold dear. So Dan, this is quite a rare Land Cruiser as well. This is almost a prototype again. What is this one?
Well, this is a BJ74 that was turned into a hard-roofed 4-door vehicle prior to Toyota actually producing a true 4-door production line vehicle, which became the HZJ77.
Okay.
So this was a precursor. There was a couple, I'm not sure how many were ordered exactly or built, maybe a couple dozen or so, and it was a attempt to fill a need for a four-door vehicle to transport work crews, where the previous available 70 series were all two-door vehicles, and they wanted to be able to get people in and out easier. So they created this four-door, starting with a mid-wheelbase BJ74 that would have had a fiberglass removable roof. And then they took it to the custom body shop and turned it into a steel roofed vehicle, and then added some custom rear doors to it, and turned it into a four-door. It's a prototype kind of a thing, so the body work is not the best, but it works.
You can see like the rear door alignment is really quite,
it's close.
quite afterthought.
Well, it's close to a door, yeah, exactly. But it was intended as a commercial work vehicle, and fit and finish was really not their primary concern. Their functionality was what they were after, and this actually did eventually become a production vehicle with a little bit longer wheelbase to better accommodate the passengers and still allow some cargo space.
And would that be the 76 of today?
Today's 76 would be a descendant of this vehicle, yes.
You guys have got some extremely rare and cool Land Cruisers here, but are there any that you're particularly looking for that you know were made, but you know?
Oh, there's a few vehicles. We're actively looking for vehicles to fill holes that we have in the collection. We actually have some vehicles inbound right now to us that are not particularly rare, but they're just ones that we don't have an example of. They're non-US, so we got to go somewhere else to find them. There are some very unusual older vehicles that we would love to get our hands on if we could find one. The unicorn of unicorns would be the AK-10, which was a reverse engineered Jeep that was originally constructed during the Second World War, based on taking apart some Jeeps that were captured by the Japanese when they took the Philippines. And numbers that have been thrown out about how many were actually produced is somewhere between 4 or 6.
Wow.
So a half a dozen or less, but there are no records that we've been able to discover that establish that they survived the war. They were most likely destroyed prior to the end of the war.
If you've got one in your barn.
Yeah, tell us about it. We'd love to visit. And another one is a two-door station wagon variant from 1960, the FJ35, L35V, or LV if it was a left-hand drive, which was a two-door version of what we commonly would see, well, not commonly, but we did get here in the United States and in some other countries, is the FJ45LV, which was a four-door. This was a two-door version that was made for just a few months in 1960, and the only thing we've been able to come up with is old photographs at this point. We haven't found an actual example. So those would be probably the two unicorns that we would love to see the most.
This museum is absolutely mind-blowing. This video has not done it justice. All I can say is get yourself an airplane, get over here to Salt Lake City and come and check out this museum. That's the only way you're really going to appreciate it, and honestly, you need to allow yourself the best part of a day to do it properly and do it justice. Now, Dan, thank you so much for hosting us and having us come to the museum. I'd like to give you a cap and a Mad Matt sticker, and maybe you can do something worthwhile with that, but
this is awesome, and I have a perfect place for it.
Well, I'm humbled that Mad Matt Fall Drive has made it to the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum.
And if you want to see that hat, you're going to have to come here.
That's right, it's worth it. I'm Mad Matt, stay safe on the trails.